My best friend of 10 years just confessed to me that she's in love with my fiancé. We met in college. I honestly think she's my soulmate. I only have brothers, and for me, she was like the sister I never had. When sisterhood, the secrecy, she was my best friend in all senses, always supporting each other through good and bad. My family considered her one of our own. She always had a place in our home, and she even spent weeks with them without me being here because my nephews think of her as an aunt. I met my fiancé in college too. He was in a different major and I met him through one of my brothers. He's the most amazing man I've known, intelligent, kind, cultured, romantic, handsome, everything. I feel like I hit the jackpot with him. He has taught me so many things. Ever since we began to date, he has taught me a language, and in the process of learning another one, some mathematics stuff that I was always ashamed of not knowing and things like that. I feel like I also learned to be more open, compassionate and loving. I'll admit that when I was younger I wasn't always kind due to my depression, but he compliments me and I compliment him. We have a 7-month baby boy and we're in the middle of planning a wedding. My friend and my fiancé met 5 months after we began dating and she was enchanted by him. They almost share the very exact same interests and she's also a very, very smart woman, a genius. Their conversations are deep and amazing and they're good friends. I did notice before that she shows a good amount of interest in him, always asking how is he, what's he's up to, how's his family, and when he's around she can talk to him for hours, but I thought it was because they're entertained by the same things. To be completely honest, I was never scared or threatened by this because I trusted her and my fiancé never gave any sign of being interested in her in the slightest. He asked about her a few times but she almost only existed when she was around, and for him, she was my friend, not ours. She came clean because I asked her to be my maid of honor, and when Say began to cry I think it was of happiness, but she said she couldn't because she has been in love with my husband for 3 years and couldn't do it, that she never tried anything with him and he never gave any sign of being even interested. She said she saw the way he adored me and loved me and could bear it any other way but not my wedding. She said sorry a bunch of times, that she never wanted this to happen. I don't know what to do or how to feel. At the same time, as bad as it sounds, I don't really care because I know my fiancé loves me and she's not that important in his life. However, I know our relationship can't be the same as it was. I just don't know how much will change. I don't know if I should tell my fiancé though, because it's not my secret to share. I guess I was shocked and only wanted to get it out.
Update: I laid my hands on my girlfriend out of reflex when I woke up to her doing certain things to me. When I made the original post I definitely didn't thought it would blow up like this, and I certainly didn't expect the comments to be so one-sided, and I didn't expect them to be on my side. I expected nothing but people telling me how horrible I was, and I felt that this would be the only comment I deserved. But after reading literally thousands of comments I slowly began to realize what actually happened there. You have to understand that this moment shocked me to the core, and this shock still was there when I uploaded the original post. I saw myself as the absolutely disgusting woman because of it. I never wanted to hurt anyone, but I realized now that it was a trauma response. When I woke up to her going down on me it felt like my whole body was controlled by someone else, like I was controlled by strings that forced me to react like that. And the more comments I read the more I was sure about that. One day after the post, after thousands of comments from Reddit but also from TikTok and many direct messages, I talked to her about it and I broke up with her because all of this made me realize that my perspective of loving and caring was pretty messed up. I realized that she showed me the bare minimum of compassion someone should have in a relationship, and I noticed many toxic patterns I haven't realized before. But going into them now would not only be irrelevant to the actual topic, but it also would take way too long for this update post. By the way, she refused to apologize to me and demanded an apology from me. Besides my now ex-girlfriend I only had one friend. I don't have an actual mother or a father. I don't have grandparents or siblings, just this one friend, so I really lack of healthy bonds in my life. Breaking up with her was a hard thing to do, but it was necessary. She currently stays with her mom, who also called me yesterday to ask why I broke up with her, and I saw no reason to lie and just told her everything. She was quiet on the phone for a while and then just told me her daughter's ex-boyfriend broke up with her for a similar reason. She said it wasn't the same situation but a similar one, and then she apologized. She didn't go into details, but if I'm interpreting it correctly, my ex seems to have a thing for traumatized men. But again, there is no evidence to support that claim. That's just how I would interpret this conversation with her mom. So what am I going to do now? Well, I'm going to therapy and probably won't enter a new relationship anytime soon. I focus on myself and I have to heal. No, I won't press charges because that would mean that I would have to deal with it in a negative way and put energy into it that I just don't have. I hope you can understand that. Her mom is probably going to punish her anyway. And losing the respect of a person you love dearly, I can imagine that's worse than what she would get as a punishment from the court. As for you, I would like to thank you all for your comments, the comments you left on the original post, the private messages, but also all the comments you left on the TikTok posts that shared my story. If you left a comment on one of the TikToks, chances are I've read it. Thank you all so much. Update: my girlfriend of 4 years and I both tested positive for chlamydia, and I don't know how to handle the situation. Well, I now know how I got chlamydia. I got a lot more comments than I expected on my previous post, most of them saying I should snap out of the delusion, but also some alternative suggestions of how it might have happened. People suggested that she might have lied about me being her first. At first I didn't think this could be it, as we are both very feminist, and progressive generally, so it didn't feel like something she'd lie about. We are not religious either, but who knows, we had only known each other for about a year when we got together, and maybe she got freaked out. Some people also suggested she might not see oral as losing V card, but we both do. The other possibility that seemed likely was that she had been essayed and either don't remember or didn't want to tell me. Anyway, after work I stopped by a youth clinic and did a nude test just to make sure, as someone suggested. When I got home I spent the evening trying to figure out how best to ask her about these possibilities. I'm either suggesting she might have lied to me or possibly bringing up trauma, so I wanted to make sure I did it in the best way possible, but I won't have to worry about that anymore. Luckily she hasn't been essayed and unfortunately she didn't lie to me about being a virgin. The morning of my last post, I was eating breakfast and watching YouTube on our shared iPad like I usually do. I remembered that the iPad is logged into her Snap account. Just to make sure, I checked. If she's cheating, surely Snap would be where she's talking to this guy, right? Didn't see any unfamiliar names. I did however see that she had an unread message from my best friend's girlfriend, female 23. I don't know why but I checked it. It said, "Gonna get tested today." At first I thought that they had just discussed it. They are friends after all, and she had decided to get tested as well. But I scrolled up and saw the conversation they had yesterday and well, I got cheated on. My girlfriend woke up about 5 minutes later and immediately asked me what was wrong. She said I looked pale. I sincerely apologized. Going through her private messages is not okay after all, and told her what I had seen. She came clean immediately. My best friend's girlfriend had only ever been with men, and my girlfriend had only ever been with me. Apparently, they were both questioning if they were bi, so while my best friend, male 24, and I were at the gym they were hanging out at my best friend's place, like they usually do. That day the curiosity got the best of them and they made love. This was last year and she assures me it hasn't happened since and won't happen again. I'm not really sure how to feel right now. I always imagined that if I got cheated on I'd feel crushed, but I'm surprisingly neutral over it all. I don't know. My biggest worry right now is how I'm gonna tell my best friend about it. They've been together for almost 2 years and his New Year's resolution this year was to propose to her. He's gonna be crushed and I hate to think about it. We're going to the gym after work today so I'll tell him then. Just need to figure out how. I planted bamboo that overrun my neighbor's property over a security light. About 4 years ago I used to live in a nice hoa in a small town in Texas and enjoyed having only one neighbor over my backyard fence. The plot was about 2 acres and the other side of the backyard butted up to a hay field. The stars were beautiful at night because of virtually no light pollution. Until the neighbor decided to install an incredibly bright security light over their back porch aimed right at my back patio and bedroom windows. I tried to ignore it at first and put shades in the bedroom, but out on the patio it was like having a bright LED headlight in your face all night. I consulted the hoa about adding a privacy addition to my fence to increase its height, and they said no because it's already at the 8-foot max allowed height. They said there was nothing in the bylaws or whatever about bright lights, so nothing they could do. Diplomacy. So I hated for this to be the thing where we finally had a formal greeting after 3 years of back porch waves, but I walked over and rang the doorbell with $20. I politely explained how the light was causing the aforementioned nuisance and asked if there was any way I could convince him to point the light down or in a different direction, and even offered to buy him a case of beer. The $20, out of goodwill and even a new motion sensing light. He seemed nice and agreed to point it down. But after waiting a month, nothing changed. I went back to have another polite conversation and he said he had changed his mind and was going to leave it on every night and leave it pointed as is. Petty revenge. Needless to say I was a bit upset. Diplomacy failed and started figuring out how to win. If the military taught me anything, there's always ways to adapt and overcome. So I started researching fast-growing plants to create big privacy walls and reading through the hoa bylaws and city-state ordinances about what I could or couldn't plant and if there were any repercussions for encroachment across the property line. I quickly discovered running bamboo, despite being very invasive, would grow super fast to make the neighbor's house and light disappear from view, and there was nothing on the hoa, state, or city books to prevent me from planting it or cause legal recourse if it spread and grew on his side on the fence. Only thing he could do is cut anything that grew on his side of the line. So I pulled the trigger and planted a bunch of golden bamboo, which grows and spreads crazy fast in Texas and grows up to 20 feet tall. I didn't care if it took over the fence line because his house is 15 feet from the fence while mine was 50 yards away, so I planted a bunch right against the fence and only put root barrier on my side to prevent it spreading into my yard. Within 6 months his house and light were gone from view, replaced by a pretty bamboo jungle row at the edge of my yard. Within 1 year he complained it was growing into his yard via mailed letters. They went right into the trash with no response. He rang my doorbell once and I looked at him through the window but just didn't answer the door. I unexpectedly sold the house and moved 2 years after planning for a career opportunity. It's been 2 years since I sold and I just checked the property on Google Earth and his entire backyard is bamboo. Update. My ex-wife wants me to be with her in her last days. It's been almost 3 weeks since I've posted and a lot has happened since. I got some solid advice from a lot of you guys, especially some who messaged me their personal experiences. I'd like to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. So here's what happened. As many of you guys suggested, I talked to my wife. We had a long discussion about the whole situation and I assured her that no matter what, she is and always will be my first priority. I also assured her that while I wanted to say my goodbye, I would never act like her husband. It would be more like me seeing a childhood friend or something like that. I also told her I would never spend the night nor would I be alone with her. She was more comfortable after our talk and was pretty okay with the idea of me seeing my ex again. As you guys guessed, she really felt like she was forced into being okay with it when my sister asked, but this time, she really was okay. So I talked to my sister and after a long heated discussion about what my role would be in the visit, she agreed to the boundaries my wife and I set. A week later my sister and I came over to our old marital home. It was surreal cause while the emotions from years before came back to me, I didn't feel any sadness nor hatred or anything negative. I saw my ex, who was waiting for us in the living room, and she cried when I walked in. Most of you suggested she was faking it, but while she was still strong, You could tell almost immediately something was wrong with her. I indulged her with a hug and we talked for a few hours while my sister made lunch. I showed her pictures of my kids and told her stories about what they're like. Honestly, I didn't know how I would react after I saw her again, but it just feels like seeing an old friend you haven't seen in a long time. There was no hate or anything like that. I walked around the house and it was pretty much the way it was when I left over a decade ago. I'm not really sure how I feel about our wedding photos still framed and pictures of us still all over the house, but it wasn't really my place to say anything. The three of us had lunch and played board games all afternoon. It honestly felt like we were back to when we were kids and the three of us would hang out together. It was nice. I left at around 6. She was sad but she understood. When I hugged her goodbye, she whispered I love you to me but then said how she's happy I was able to find the happiness she couldn't give me. That part got to me, to be honest, and I was fighting back tears. I told her I'd see her again soon and she asked if I could bring my kids next time. I told her I would and left to pick up dinner for my family. I told my wife everything that happened and she was quite happy about the outcome. I guess it helped that I brought home her favorite food, but she also agreed to let me bring the kids next time. Overall, it was a great experience seeing her again. I feel like I needed that and would have regretted not doing so. Again, I'd like to thank everyone who gave me advice. Also, please don't roast my ex too much. She made a mistake and paid the price, but it doesn't mean she's an evil person. This will be my last update. Thank you very much, Reddit. Anyone have stories of confronting your bullies years later? I was 15 and moved to Philly from Texas. I had a pretty strong accent and had never been out of the state before, so I didn't know what to expect socially. On my first day of school I had the bad judgment to wear a Dallas Cowboys jersey thinking people will just laugh. Throughout the day, I got a few dirty looks and a few "you've got balls" comments. Last period goes by and I'm waiting for my bus out front when this huge Guido comes up and starts talking crap. I tell him to piss up a rope and next thing I know, I'm on the ground. He gets suspended and I'm told not to antagonize things. Time goes by and he's a constant pain in my life, bullying me around on a weekly basis. He outweighed me by about 75 pounds thanks to his steroid use and had a temper to match. I got my butt handed to me many times thanks to him and his manipulations. We graduate and I don't see him for a few years. I had always been into cooking and decided that's what I wanted to do with my life, so I went to culinary school and started working in the industry. I worked my way up the ladder quickly thanks to focus, a willingness to sacrifice a social life and hard work. A few years later I was the executive chef of a small bistro and we had a policy of taking a prisoner on work release from the county jail as part of a rehabilitation program. The owner was a great guy who grew up without guidance and made some bad decisions early in life that got him thrown in jail for a few years. He got out, got a job as a dishwasher where the owner of that place saw some promise and took him under his wing, giving him the life lessons he never got from his family and so on. This was his way of paying forward what he got. We had gone through a few guys that seemed to do well and so far the program was working out well. One day we were slated to get a new guy and guess who walks in the door? He doesn't notice me at first but then is introduced to me as his direct boss. The owner starts to introduce me but I interrupt saying that we already know each other quite well and need no introductions. I told the owner about our history, not leaving any details out, and he asks me what I want to do. I tell him give me a few minutes in the walk-in. Large walk-in refrigerator that is soundproof. With him and it's all good. I take him in there and ask him why he was in jail and where he was in his head. I also told him how I would treat him was up to him and that this could go well or he could turn right around and go right back to jail. He ended up breaking down and spilling his heart out to me, between substances, an awful household and having no real friends in school due to a total lack of social skills. He had no idea how to have a real relationship. He told me that the days he would be awful to me were the days after his old man would lay his hands on him when he got wasted. His life just went downhill after school and he ended up getting busted for dealing. I told him to clean himself up and I'd do my best to show him how to get himself together. He ended up being one of the hardest workers I have ever seen. 5 years later he ended up being my sous chef. He has his own restaurant now and we guest chef at each other's place all the time. I wouldn't trade his friendship for the world.
Everybody believes I'm dumb for breaking up with my boyfriend for nothing, but for me it is something. I need advice about the thing with men having female friends. I don't know. I could understand if it is a childhood friend, an old ex where love and attraction is long gone, on both parts, and only friendship is left, etc. But my boyfriend of 3 years, been living together for a month, suddenly became friends with a girl from work. I don't like it. It started with him telling me how happy he was that there's finally someone new at work that he clicked with. He told me who she is and they had a lot in common, etc. I didn't mind it at first. I was just happy he was having a good time at work. I started minding when I met her. She was hostile. She called me the lucky one and asked me if I felt threatened by younger women since I'm older. What? I'm literally 2 to 3 years older than her and 6 months older than my boyfriend. He laughed. I told him that I didn't like her and that I didn't want him to be closer to her. He has a lot of friends and he doesn't need her. He called me jealous and ridiculous. I said fine. I kept an eye on them and they started texting more and more frequently. We celebrated our anniversary last weekend and she knew it. She was texting the whole evening and he answered some of her texts. She asked him if he was having fun at our celebration and he said very much, so she texted, "If you're really having fun you wouldn't be texting me instead." I told him that was enough and that he should put his phone aside. I asked him if he thought what she wrote was okay. He said that she was only joking. That's her sense of humor. I should loosen up. I told him again that I didn't like her and that even though I could be wrong he should respect my wishes and cut her off. He told me that I was controlling and insecure and that he isn't doing anything wrong, so I should respect and trust him. The evening was ruined. We fought. I thought to myself, Maybe I was controlling and insecure, and in that case he shouldn't be with someone like me. Or I could be right and he is letting someone step over my boundaries and then I shouldn't be with him. Either way we shouldn't be with each other. I took a personal day. Moved all my stuff from his apartment, and went back to my old place that I shared with a friend. She was happy to have me back so she didn't need to find a new roomie. Everyone now from my boyfriend to our friends to our families think I'm overreacting. We could discuss and solve this, but I have tried, for many months, to make him understand that I was very uncomfortable. He texts me multiple times a day to come to my senses and to stop being childish. He loves me and she is just a friend. Funny that old me is the childish one, isn't it? With the age gap and all.